Welcome to Dependable Flame, where we explore vintage petrol lighters, ashtrays, tobacconiana, and other useful mechanisms. Make yourself at home. Alright, so as you can see, we have done a little bit more disassembling than we had done when we left you. Decided to go ahead and pull out the actuating mechanism button and get that clean. So we are going to reinstall that now. There you see the catch and the spring that provides its tension. And we had to pull up this chimney wick to gain access to be able to get that out. So we will put that into position right there into that back plate and slide it down into place. Once we've got that slid back into place, then we can go ahead and thread back in our actuating button. That was pretty tight in there. I had to use a pair of pliers to get it completely loosened up. And that feels as though it has tightened back up. By hand should be good enough. We also disassembled the file wheel because it looked dirty and we've had some ignition problems with this lighter. I could not recall when I got this lighter the file wheel was in it backward. So it was obviously not producing any spark. We turned it around the right way and that made a major difference. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that it was working as well as it could. So we're going to get this file wheel back into place and then we will thread in our fulcrum screw. If we're going to call anything a fulcrum screw, I think that would be the one. And we should be able to thread that in a good portion by hand. Get a screwdriver on that at this point and tighten that on down. There's your file wheel turning as it should. So we have our button mechanism back in place. We have our file roller back in place and the screw tightened down. Now we will start the process of reassembling our cover or snuffer, whatever you want to call this mechanism. Typically I would call this the snuffer, but I did notice in the Thorens literature it was referred to as a cover. So first and foremost, we will place our spring with the long tail toward the back and the short extension toward the front. Place that into position in the middle of the claw assembly. Now we will slide both of those into the cover assembly with the screw laying on our table. We will place our screwdriver on that top screw and then set everything down onto that lower screw. And well, if we can get everything into place here first. everything's got to be lined up, and it's very hard to grab all these tiny little screws. Like I told you guys at the beginning of this project yesterday, I had never done this before. So putting that all into place and then setting it down on the screw and tightening it up, threaded it in enough that everything was held together, and then we could hold it with our finger there on the outside and tighten up that screw from the inside. There you can see it all coming into position. Now we still don't have that spring exactly into place as we want it, but we're going to go ahead and get this claw assembly tightened up first. So we will put the screwdriver back on that outside screw, and then through the hole on the other side we will get this screwdriver on that inside screw that is holding the spring. Get that tightened and snugged down like we need it. Very difficult to get your position sometimes working with two screwdrivers, and as you guys can obviously see, it's very difficult for me to keep my hand out of the way. Okay, so that's tight. Got that one in place. Now we need to get the spring spun around here into place. I'm not sure how others have accomplished this project, but I obviously could not coil that spring up while holding everything in place to get everything in position. So I installed the spring, then I formed out of my 0.3 millimeter beading wire a small little lasso that I could use to hook the front extension of that spring, catch it in the loop, and then pull it around the, whatever it was, 3/4 of a turn, maybe close to a full turn. Then it needed to come back around to provide the tension that is necessary to cause those claws to cling forward. So I'm going to take my time here and try to pull everything very straight, try not to bend up that spring or anything. But once we get this little lasso pulled back around in the right position, then I will put a pair of pliers on it, and we are going to need to pull that front extension of the spring back around to where it rests on the bar that runs between those two claws there toward the back of those claw arms. Now we will get the pliers on our wire and snugly pull that backward, and as that spring snaps into place, you will see the wire come off the little extension, and there you have everything perfectly into place. That's the only way that I could figure out how to do that, and it looks like I cut myself pretty good while I was doing it. But at least we have everything back in place now. So now we can tighten down. That screwdriver's too small for that. So now we'll put that screwdriver on the inside part, and this one on the outside, and that is tight. I hope that little wire trick helps some of you, and I hope it didn't confuse anything here in the process. Get our other side. of the claw assembly back in place, and we will tighten that down. Now we have both sides tight. We have our claw with tension as it should. We've already got our file wheel back in here, chimney back in place, and the catch mechanism back in place. Okay, so we are going to fit our spring and its cover in there like that. Now, take our hinge pin, that slid into place. And now get the cap back on the back side of it. It's going to take us just a minute here to get a screwdriver on each side of this mechanism. Okay, so we have had many starts and stops here, and it appears as though now everything is back into place. So we will take these claws and push them underneath the file wheel. All right, now if I can find the flint. All right. Prop our flint catch up there, and now if I can find the flint that I just dumped out here onto the table. And there's no telling where it ran off to. So let's pour out another one. Slide that flint right in the tube and drop the catch down on top of it. All right, thought it might take a little bit longer to fire up since we've had the cover off of it, or the snuffer, for all this time, and it is now throwing a good spark, so it should be grooved sufficiently. And we did have a Dunhill blue flint in there. I don't know that that was necessary. It had worked a lot better off these red flints when I first got it, and definitely should work better now, considering that we've got all these parts cleaned and back into place. So that is how you replace the 55C spring according to the diagram that Chris Barkley was following, and according to the diagram that I've been following here from the 1954 Lighter Repair Manual that spring was labeled 502C. So whatever the technical term, whatever the proper name for that spring is, I am not certain. It is the spring that provides the tension for the claws, and we do have it reinstalled in our lighter now. And hopefully when we get the flint in this lighter groove back properly, you saw it light one time. I am sure that the wick is just dried out from having the cover off of it for so long. But that is how you replace that 55C or 502C claw spring in a double claw Thorens automatic lighter. Technically, I should say semi-automatic lighter. And you guys get ready. We'll have plenty more videos on this lighter. Well, I guess I shouldn't say plenty more, because if it begins working correctly, and especially if it is working better than it was, then it may be time to send this lighter on to our buddy Jay. So until next time.